Sure. Let me pull up my notes. Looks like we've got folks still rolling in. So uh, before we get into the meat of today's presentation, I just wanted to provide a few words of welcome. For those of you I haven't had the pleasure of meeting, my name is Caitlin Rose. I am the Policy Director at the Southeast Sustainability Directors Network. Sorry, that's a mouthful today, or SSDN. And we're really glad to be partnering with SACE on the Electrify the South collaborative. Next slide. So if you're new, if this is your first time joining us for one of these ETS virtual events, just wanted to give a brief overview of what the collaborative is. We began this work collaboratively with SACE in 2023 to help local governments understand and implement federal funding programs and opportunities related to transportation electrification. So obviously we know that we're in a very different moment with regards to federal funding than we were in 2023. So we've had to shift a lot of the programming and support we've been able to provide. But we want to still reiterate that, like you all, we know that continuing to electrify our transportation systems is still a priority among many of your communities for economic, health, and environmental reasons, among many other things. So we're still here and eager to support the work that you all are doing. And as I said, this is facilitated jointly by SACE and SSDN. And so I will say just quickly, we've been doing virtual and in-person events over the past year in order to assist local governments to connect them with programs and partnership opportunities around the region. We've also been able to work with you all to build some capacity related to state policy initiatives that pertain to electric transportation. And we provide a lot of resources that hopefully are helpful to you all in your efforts to do this work within your communities. So today's agenda is pretty packed, so I'll be pretty brief with this overview. We'll do a little bit of a recap of the resources that we have available for you all before we get into things. And then I'll pass the mic over to Stan to facilitate a conversation with the Cary Fire and Police departments about their EV conversions. And we'll have time for Q&As after each of the presentations. But I would say if you have questions as we go, please feel free to add those in the chat for each of these presentations. We as facilitators have a couple questions of our own, but we really want to make sure we get to the questions that you all have for our wonderful presenters today. So feel free to throw those in the chat as we go. So after our Q&A with Cary Fire and Police departments, we'll have a whole whale tool demonstration, again, followed by another brief Q&A so you all can ask your questions. And then we'll wrap up with a presentation from Rick Longabart of the City of Raleigh, who will showcase their EVSE planning tool that they've developed in the city. And then we'll close out around 11:30 with some follow-up information and save the dates for future events. Next slide. Speaking of future events, I see several North Carolina names on this call. So in case you weren't already aware, we have a in-person Electrify the South collaborative meeting coming up in just about 2 weeks. That's going to be on Tuesday, March 24th in Charlotte, North Carolina. So if you need the registration information, it'll be linked in these slides, and Dory just dropped it into the chat if you haven't already registered and you're interested in joining us in Charlotte in a couple of weeks. And if you have any questions about that, feel free to reach out to myself or Dory, and we can make sure we get your questions answered. Next slide. So this is my last slide before I'll pass things off to the experts on this call, but just wanted to give a brief reminder of the resources that the Electrify the South Collaborative has available for you all. All the way on the left side of the screen, you can see a screenshot of our website. This will be linked in the slides you'll receive after this meeting. But if you haven't had the chance to peruse the website before, I would recommend you do so. It's a really great repository of resources. And we've had broad participation from local governments across the region. I think nearly 100 different local governments have participated with us and sort of shared their best practices and resources. So a lot of that is reflected in the resource library that we have available for you all. We also have a member directory. So if you want to get in touch with a past speaker or somebody else that you met at an in-person collaborative meeting, we have that available for you all. That's not shared beyond the collaborative, but in case you're trying to get in touch with your peers from another city or another state, we do have that information available. And if you have new staff or if you're a new participant to the collaborative, let us know if you'd like to be included or excluded from that directory. We're happy to accommodate that. And this QR code in the middle will take you directly to the resource guide on the website. The resource guide has all of the resources that we have discussed and sort of pulled together as a collaborative. So if you're trying to find a tool or a link to something that we've talked about in the past, that's where you're going to find it. And we also have a resource related to utility programs. There's a guiding document that lists out all of the programs that are being offered by each utility in the states that we're working in. So if you're curious what your electric utility is doing related to transportation electrification and how you can partner with them, that's where you'll find that information. So I'm going to wrap up my remarks and just say the theme of today's call is about keeping forward momentum and continuing to plan for the future. As we said at the top of the call, the federal funding moment that we had a couple years ago is very different, but this transforming your fleets within your cities and counties remains a big priority, as we've heard from all of you. So we're trying to figure out how we support that, but we know that the great work you all are doing on the ground, even in an environment when you don't have funds in place today, you're laying the groundwork to assemble the team, do the education in your communities and within your governments, and create the buy-in to ensure that this work doesn't get put on the shelf to collect dust, but remains an active component of the work you're doing within your communities. And with that, Stan, I will pass the mic over to you for our first panel.
Thanks, Caitlin. Appreciate it. And good morning, everybody. For those who I don't know, I'm Stan Cross. I direct electric transportation at the Southern Alliance for Clean Energy. So happy to be here with you all today, and really appreciative of Chris Parker and Armando Bake for making time for us today to talk about their work from both the perspective of being a fire chief and being a police sergeant and bringing electric vehicles into their fleets. So, Chris and Armando, welcome. It's really great to have you here today. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
So yeah, good stuff. So and Chris and Armando both come from the city of Cary. And so I know you all are bracing for some weather where we've got it coming through the Asheville area right now. So thanks again for making time for us. So yeah, if we could just kick it off, I know both of you have been involved in bringing electric vehicles into your fleet, and just to sort of give folks a sense, maybe we can start with you, Chris. Sort of what inspired you to add an electric vehicle into your fleet?
Yeah, absolutely. Good morning, everybody. I appreciate the opportunity to come on here and speak and kind of talk about a little bit about what we've done in the past. And obviously, at the end, you can share my information. Be glad to help anybody or if you have any questions. But I think really it starts by the town has had a long understanding, and they've been very environmental conscious. And so, when we look at what we've done in the past, the fire department has been very slow to adapt things like sustainability with fleets, electric vehicles, because there's a lot of unknowns. And so I think that like we wanted to be a part of that, but we needed to ensure that the trucks were reliable. We don't really have the opportunity to send another truck that's a delayed response, seconds, minutes, counts, and things of that nature. And so really in about 2022, we really started getting into some idle reduction technology and started evaluating that, doing some retrofits, buying some new trucks with IRT, and then that kind of opened the door to take the next step. And so the next step is really going electric. I will say that our truck has a diesel backup, so it's a dual drivetrain. So if the battery does run out, we can fully function on the diesel backup. And then we were presented the opportunity to get a truck about a year earlier. Not sure if there's any fire service representatives on this call, but lead times are about 3 years, and so we were able to get this truck a year earlier. So that's kind of how we really started with it. Obviously, council driven, town administration working with a lot of different groups to say, hey, as we look, I'm not in charge of fleet of the whole town, but over the fire department, how do we look at different operational departments and kind of factor them in and take that step together in different roles.
Yeah, well, Chris, we really applaud your willingness and totally understand, the need to make sure that the fire truck's going to do what needs to happen. Having been in a house fire myself, I greatly appreciate those seconds that count. And so that's really also exciting that you've sort of stepped into this leadership role because there's not a lot of fire departments that are bringing electric fire trucks on yet. So it's really important to have some examples out there. And we'll talk in a minute about how it's going for you and what some of your aha moments have been. But before we do, let's bring Armando into the conversation. And if you wouldn't, Armando, let us know about what inspired you and the police department to begin bringing EVs into your fleet.
Yeah, thank you. So, similar to what Chief Parker said, the town of Cary is very driven for sustainability and green initiatives. And so, our journey actually began in 2014 when we acquired a Nissan Leaf, and that was designated as an admin vehicle. So, it's got lights, it's got sirens, doesn't get driven as much as a patrol vehicle. And then we jumped in to the EV fully in about 2021 when we acquired two Tesla Model Ys and fully upfitted them, marked them up, put prisoner transport cages in the back and whatnot, and rolled those out. Since then, we have acquired four Tesla Model 3s, which are dedicated to the administrative functions here at the police department. And we're continuing to explore, and hopefully I'm not jumping ahead here, but similar to, again, what Chief Parker said, we've got to make sure that these vehicles are functional for police use. And I know Chevy just recently came out with a police pursuit rated EV vehicle, which we have not explored yet, but those options are becoming more readily available for police use.
That's great. That's great. And so just kind of continuing with the police vehicles for a moment, like how has it been adding those vehicles to your fleet, especially the fully outfitted Model Ys? Like curious how it's worked both from a functionality standpoint, how the officers driving those vehicles are feeling about driving those vehicles, and also how sort of the communities responded to you having those vehicles in your fleet.
Yes, so definitely some learning curves because Tesla back then was not in the police market. This was more of us jumping in saying, hey, let's try this out. And so a few of the things that we learned, we needed to apply a different battery source for the siren and lights. That way it wouldn't have an adverse effect with the vehicle EV battery. The braking system did not really support the way we drive hard, fast, and whipping corners around. So that's some of the learning curves that we have figured out. The other thing too is the prisoner transport area was not very comfortable. Again, because Tesla is not in the market for police vehicles, and so we kind of had to fashion something that was semi
A priority
able
call.
to use.
See
Correct.
banner.
So
There is a priority call.
give me a
See
second
banner.
here. Sorry about that.
That's
It's a priority call. See banner. There is a
no problem, no problem. It's the joys of bringing law enforcement on the call.
Yes. And then to answer some of your other questions, the community has received it very well. We actually, when we rolled the Tesla Model Ys out, we did that in our Christmas parade, and it was kind of an aha moment. Like everyone's like, "Oh wow, that's cool!" Like Teslas as police vehicles, and so yeah, we continue to
there is a
explore that
priority call.
to see
See
how it
banner.
goes moving
There is
forward.
a priority.
So hopefully that answered all your questions there.
Yeah, well, thank you. I appreciate it. And Chris, why don't we go back to you with the same question, sort of, how's it going for you with the vehicle in the fleet, and how's your staff responding and the community responding to it being part of Cary's fire department?
Yeah, so I'll first answer that question as far as the internal. It's been really good. There was a lot of unknowns when we started getting in, started doing a lot of research, I think a lot of times when you're doing change management, and this could be considered a change, something different than what we've done, uh, it's important that you meet the people where they're at and you allow them to develop and bring them along and then let them decide for themselves. And so that takes some time. So we did not rush that. But I would say kind of like Sergeant Bake made a comment, like our town, our culture is very innovative. We're willing to try new things, take risk, and say, hey, this was a bad, this we should there's a better way to do this, and then deviate from our original plan. So we're very adaptive from that standpoint. But really good. There's been a lot of things that we didn't know that staff has given us feedback as far as the quality of the ride, the noise. When you think about things of like sensory overload, you have radios going off, you have priority calls going off, you have other radio traffic. People are communicating. You pull on the scene of a fire, you have noises of maybe some minor explosions. People are, hey, there's nobody in the house, there's somebody in. There's a lot of noise, and so this really reduces a lot of the actual vehicle noise. And then our employees are working around the truck where they're able to communicate better, even though we have a radio and we have headsets and stuff. But it's just, it's like trying to talk on the phone at a concert. Like it's just very, very difficult. And so that's been really good. And then for the citizens, we've had a lot of people come out and ask questions. We've had a lot of positive feedback. And to be honest, if you saw the truck on a call, you would not even know that in this electric truck. We wanted to build a truck or spec a truck that was very similar to what our other specs are, because we have about 250 staff. And so based on sick time, vacation time, people float around and could ride this truck. And so we wanted the operation to be seamless. When you think about operating a truck at 3 p.m. or 3 a.m., they need to have that muscle memory. And so it was very important that we kind of stuck to what our roots were and tried to make it very similar. But it's been overall very good. And people enjoy it. We don't always get the opportunity to open our doors and share our story. And this has been a very good opportunity for people to come in and ask questions, and maybe not even ask questions about the truck specifically, but what do we do and what is our job like? And so it's people are very proud of what we do. And so it's been a good opportunity to share that.
Well, that's really exciting. I think both from the Model Ys and the other administrative EVs and hearing that about the fire truck as well. It's good to hear that there's been kind of good engagement with the community around the transition. I'm curious, Chris, with the diesel backup that you all got, which makes total sense for making sure the vehicle can do what it needs to do. Are you finding that you are needing that, or are you finding that the electric drive is doing what it needs to do, or do they always work together? And that's not really a question that you can answer.
Yeah, so it's people always ask how long does the battery last, right? And so there's so many variables. There's a bunch of electronics and components on this truck. There's a pump, and so if we're pumping 200 gallons of water, or we could pump up to 1,500 gallons of water. And so there's various. The state of charge is various. What I can tell you is we put this truck in service in June, and in about 2 weeks we had a two-alarm apartment fire. The truck was on scene for about 3 hours, pumping three lines off and on for 3 hours. And we went down, I think it was 30 or 40%. And so we've had another case where this truck was actually filling in. There was a truck that was, they had to go to training, so they backfilled a district. So there was coverage. The truck was gone for about 8 hours, ran about 7 calls, never went on diesel backup either time.
Nice, nice.
And so we have yet to go on diesel for any type of call or anything, unless we want it to go to diesel. We can force it to go to diesel if need be. So
That's great. That's good to hear. That's good to hear. We got a question coming in from Trey in the chat that I might throw your way first, Armando, and that is sort of how are you all approaching EV charging for your EVs? Like, what are some of the maybe challenges you've run into there, and if you have, how have you addressed those challenges?
Yeah, definitely good question. So as we began, there really wasn't an infrastructure in place. So we collaborated with the town shop and the town of Cary, and we have since installed multiple locations of EV charging that we can use. So we have five here at the police department that we can use. We have other town facilities that also now have EV, but it was difficult at first, especially with the Teslas, which require, that supercharge, because the other type of charging was a lot slower. And then for police, we don't want them hooked up to that for an hour, pulling them out of service when we need them on the road. So giving them the access and ability to the supercharging or quicker charging allows them to stay in service longer and meet the needs of the police department and the citizens.
That's great. And have you noticed, like from a cost savings perspective, have you been able to notice a benefit driving on electric and using that supercharger network versus gas for your
So
fuel?
that's a very good question. I do not have the answer to because all of that is run through our town shop. So they
Right.
see all of the fleet, and then individually for the police department, I manage the fleet for the police vehicles. So I do not get those numbers, unfortunately.
Okay. Yeah, no problem. No problem. Understood. And for you, Chris, maybe the same question about how you're sort of approaching charging your fire truck, but also from Chris Davis, the question about sort of what make a model fire truck that you're using, and if you have any sense as to like maintenance and fuel cost savings that you all are experiencing from running on electric.
Yeah, so the fuel excuse me, the truck is a Pierce Volterra pumper, what we would call an engine company. When you asked about charging, so I'll hit charging first. We installed a 150 kilowatt charger mounted overhead in the bay. We have a drop down. The cabinet is exterior outside the station that sits adjacent to the transformer. And so we didn't want anything in our actual bay that could be hit or limit us moving forward or anything like that. So when we were looking for a charger, it was a must have to have something that was overhead with a drop down. So that's been really good. And then as far as fuel savings or costs like that, and I think that I had this in my notes to talk about. So one of the things that we didn't really realize is we were focused on we need power to charge this vehicle. And so we're on the later stages of getting the app and working with the manufacturer of the or the charger company to get that data. So we don't have anything that we can quantify right now. It's just something that we missed because we were just focused on responding to emergencies and have enough power.
Yeah.
Now we're going to be working on capturing all the data and all that stuff. So
Excellent, excellent. Well, we'll look forward to following up with you on that because I know that's sort of top of mind when we're thinking about these transitions and those maintenance and fuel cost savings can certainly help make the business case. So as we sort of look to wrap up and folks participants feel free to keep dropping questions in the chat if you have any come to mind. But maybe if you could each share, maybe starting with you, Chris, kind of what's been the sort of biggest aha for you as a fire chief, bring in an electric fire truck into your fleet? Could be positive or negative, but what's that been sort of that biggest aha moment for you?
um, I, I don't know if I have anything specific. I mean, it's been a really good process. Um, there's a lot of negative information out there about it in some cases, but what I would relate it to is misinformation. People don't fully understand how the truck works, and so they're like, water and batteries don't mix. And so the way that this system is designed is it's the engineers have already worked through this. There's the diesel backup. It's a dual drivetrain. The truck will, in theory, pump longer than what a conventional truck is because it will utilize all the battery, and then it has the diesel backup with 50 gallons of diesel. Obviously, the diesel motor is smaller, which you would say that it would burn less fuel when it's running. And so there's been a lot of misinformation. And so we've done we've tried to do a lot of things and try to share information, share correct information, and I think sometimes it's really hard to get ahead of that.
Understood for sure. And thanks for calling out that misinformation. I think it's really a critical area that we be addressing all the time. And Armando, how about for you? Has there been a particular aha moment, either positive or negative, as you brought these vehicles into your fleet?
Yeah, so the aha moment definitely is that EV vehicles are capable and have the potential to be utilized within police functions. The drawback is, again, there's nothing or hasn't been anything really specific for police. And so it's kind of been that learning curve of, are the brake pads strong enough to be able to withstand the driving that we endure? Is there space enough for the officer, for the equipment that they carry, for the prisoner? Things of that nature. And again, the EV world is coming around. Chevy stepped into it. I believe Ford is also trying their hand at it when it comes to the F-150 Lightning. Nothing concrete there yet, but we're continuing to keep our eye out to see what options are out there and available.
That's great. That's great. Well, one last quick question came in, Chris, from Hannah. If you could just quickly let us know, do you have a maintenance contract for your fire truck, or did you train up your current maintenance staff for working on that?
No, that's a really good question. And so we have three dedicated staff that work on fire stuff, a fire fleet. And so we sent them to the tech school, which is the same school that the dealership sends their mechanics to. And so it's I'll be honest, we're the first truck on the East Coast, and so it's it's very new for everybody, us and the dealer. And so really we've worked together to address issues and things of that nature. But at the end of the day, we wanted to be able to our people to understand the truck and be able to, not rely on an external partner to, obviously there's they could be working on other things, and then we have long lead times and things like that. So at the end of the day, we trained three staff to specifically work on this truck, or they're trained to work specifically on this truck.
Nice. Well, good stuff. And Chris, Armando, I can't thank you enough for taking time out for us today and for your leadership in the space. So thank you very much, and we look forward to keeping in touch and seeing how things keep going for the city of Cary.
Thank you.
Dory, I'll turn it back over to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Stan. And thank you again, Chris and Armando. That was really interesting. And we also have EDF shared a fact sheet and a video that I will include in the notes after the meeting so that you guys have access to that as well. All right, so the next thing that we're going to share with you is something that we're pretty excited about. It's a tool that we have been developing with the whole whale team. And it's designed to help identify where you are in your fleet transition planning, and then identify gaps in your fleet transition plan. So the tool is streamlined with AI prompts that take the user through a series of 25 questions and then identify your unique situation where you're at in transitioning your fleet. And then it creates a savable printout, which is essentially like a roadmap of next steps that you can be working on. And all of the resources that it includes are hyperlinked. Also, all of the resources and recommendations come from within parameters that we've set. So you're not going to get some like random suggestion that AI pulled from the internet. And also the data is not being stored anywhere. So there aren't any like safety concerns about the tool learning from responses or anything like that. So I just wanted to kind of give that overview of what it is. And it is my pleasure now to introduce Kat Manuel and Marjorie Zay with the whole whale team that are going to walk you through the tool. And then at the end, we'll have time for questions. So, and also recommendations for improvements. So if you have questions as they're going through it, please put those in the chat. So I'm going to hand it over to Kat and Marjorie.
Thank you, Dory. Hi, everyone. As Dory mentioned, I'm Kat, and Marjorie and I are from Whole Whale, which is a digital marketing agency that works specifically with organizations in the social good space. And we've been collaborating with the SAFE team over the last few months to develop this tool that we're really excited to walk you all through today. So I'll pass it over to Marjorie to get us started and to walk through the tool that we've been building. And if you guys have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat.
Thank you very much, Dory and Kat. Hello, everyone. My name is Marjorie. I'm part of the development team that has been creating this tool with SAYS over the last month. As Doris said, the idea is to present to you an easy way to, let's say, put the user in the mindset of understanding where are they in terms of the electrification process. The idea is to present an easy way to understand where are you and what do you need to do to complete the electrification process in general. So I'm going to share it with you right now, the interface, the version 1 of this tool, so you can understand what we're talking about. Can you see my screen right now? Perfect. As you can see, it's a pretty simple tool. The idea is to present to you an environment very similar to what you do when you are on a custom service kind of chat. So the chat is going to ask you some specific question just for context, and then we're going to be presenting to you some specific questions in terms of logistic, operational questions, etc. So you can either understand where you are and even understanding if you haven't think about something in specific or if you need more information. Even not having information is a good insight for the tool. And for the sake of the exercise, I'm going to pretend that I'm a user and I'm going to complete the journey. Let's say that I'm a fleet manager. As you can see, the initial questions are just for context. Let's pretend that I'm in, say, city, just an imaginary city, and I can start the interaction. Which state is located? I can write down the complete name of the state, or I can go with just the initials of the state. And as you can see, SAYS has broken down the information or the categories of the information that they are going to be presenting to you into 6 main areas. So the idea is to present to the tool, what is your primary area of interest? Let's say that I'm interested today on policy and foundations. And what is the specific goal that, say, City has today in terms of the interaction with this tool? Let's say that I just want to build a roadmap, right? Now we are going to start into the questions more related with the electrification process itself. Do we have any policy or plans already existing in our city? Let's say that I only have in my city form of fleet resolutions. I just need to click on the option and confirm the selection. As you can see, it's a simple chat, very similar to the ones that you are interacting with in a customer service environment. Is the procurement process centralized or is decentralized? Let's say that for say city is completely decentralized. Maybe we have not considered operational flexibility, so I can select the option none. How is the leadership support in terms of the electrification process? Let's say that I've seen in my city that leadership has some interest, but maybe they don't have enough information. They need more information, so I can select some interest. Now, how is the relationship with electric utility? Let's say that you don't have information or you are not sure about that. You will have an option for the not sure possibility. How well do you understand the fleet and how it's used today? Let's say that we have just limited visibility in terms of that. Do we have a multi-year cycle determined? Let's say that I'm not sure, maybe I'm not familiar with that area. I can select that information. How well AEB has been evaluated for operational needs. Let's say that you don't want to answer these questions or that this question in particular is not applicable to your case. You will always have in here the option for skip that question. The facility capacity has been reviewed. Let's say that some locations, only some locations has been reviewed. How is the approach to charging infrastructure? Let's say that I'm not sure about that. As you can see, you will have different options for different type of questions. How is the internal capacity? In the chat for the previous interactions, I can see that we had questions about maintenance and installation capacity. Let's say that I don't have any capacity and we will need external help in terms of that. As you can see on the top bar, you will see the progress of the experience of the journey. We have coordination between different departments, leadership, finance, procurement. Let's say that we have had some conversations, so we have some coordination. Which are the procurement strategies that are in place? Maybe we don't have any procurement strategies. And I can confirm the selections. Cybersecurity, IT has been involved. Let's say that we only have cybersecurity assessment. And a daily charging plan, do we have it? Let's say that we only have contingency plan. And which groups have received training? Let's say that maybe only drivers and first responders have been trained in terms of EV. And are we tracking, monitoring usage data? Let's say that we have partial only monitoring. And which are the KPIs that we are tracking? Let's say that we are tracking only fuel savings and emissions reductions. I can confirm the selections. And do we have any plan for growth so far? Let's say that I don't have any plan. I can confirm the selection. And I completed the journey. Now the tool is going to present to you like a summary of all the recommended next steps that are coming from the evaluation of your answers, right? And as you can see, all the next steps are categorized into the 6 main areas that SAYS has been used for the categorization of the information. But that is not the more important part. The most important part is the fact that we have different links, different resources. Some of them are pages, some of them are downloadables elements that it has been curated by the SAYS team. It's not random information, it's not random taken from the internet for the AI, is specific information that is going to be valuable for you. And of course, maybe you're going to tell me, but this is kind of difficult to read in here. This is only a preview, but at the end, you will have the option to save this as a complete PDF, a complete roadmap as a PDF. As you can see, you will have this checklist with the recommended next steps, why these steps are important, and hyperlinks to specific documentation, resources, downloadables that SAYS had put together in order to help you with the information. But maybe you don't want to read this right now, or you need to save this information to present you in different calls with your team, et cetera, et cetera. So we have, let me open here my shared window. We have in here a button to save as a PDF. Process saving a simple PDF to your computer. You just need to click save, and you will have now your roadmap on your computer, and you are going to be able to check this information whenever you want. As you can see, it's a simple PDF, and even on the PDF document, the links are going to be working, so you can go to your resources whenever you want and share this information with your team. So basically, that's the complete information or the complete experience that we have been created. Do you have any specific question?
Thank you, Marjorie. That was awesome. So I noticed in the chat that Gabriel asked if the tool is open for public use, and yes. So the intent is for you guys all to be able to take this and use it and have others use it. And again, if you have additional resources that you think, oh, this would be a really great piece that another city should know about, then please make sure that you're letting us know, because we have the ability to update it as well. Are there any other questions about the tool that, while we've got Marjorie and Kat here, we can answer? Maybe talk about the timing a little bit, Kat and Marjorie.
Like timing of the rollout, Tori?
Yeah.
So we're planning to have this tool completed by mid-April. We also have 2 meetings set up with the SAFE team to train them on the tool. So if there are any updates that are going to be needed in the future, the SAFE team should be able to make those updates. But the full tool will be ready, hopefully by mid-April. That is the goal.
And I think it's important if any of the people that we are here in this meeting, I think would be interesting if you have any specific resource that you would like to share with the SAFE team, maybe something that you think it's important, needs to be added to the tool. I would say it's important you to communicate with the SAFE team, and they can let us know about that information and add it to the tool when needed.
All right. Well, sounds like we do not have any other questions right now in the chat. So just want to thank you, Kat and Marjorie, for coming on today and sharing the resource with us. And we're excited to get it rolled out to everybody on the call and beyond on the collaborative, and get you guys using it. And hopefully it will be a really useful tool for you. We're excited about it. So with that, I will go ahead and hand it over to Caitlin to introduce the next presenter.
Sure. Thanks, Dory. And I'm excited to introduce y'all to Rick Longabart, who is the Fleet Operations Manager with the City of Raleigh. So kind of in my backyard here in the Triangle of North Carolina. The City of Raleigh has been developing an EVSE tool that I think would be of great interest to all of you. So yeah, excited to have Rick share more about that. And I think I will just pass the mic over to Rick to have him share more about the tool.
Thank you, Kathleen. My name is Rick Longabart, City of Raleigh, and I'll share a little bit more. Just want to get a thumbs up. Can we see the screen? I'm not necessarily an expert on Zoom sharing, so I want to make sure you can see my screen. I may need to move it around because I've got dual screens.
It just popped up, so I can see it.
And you should be seeing Raleigh electric vehicle. Okay, very good. So again, thank you. Appreciate the opportunity today. I'd like to share a little bit about our journey and what the tool is for and why it was designed, and see if we can help other municipalities in our nearby neighborhood advance the cause to electrification. For those that are not aware, again, Rick Longabart with the City of Raleigh, been with the City of Raleigh going on 5 years come July. Proud of the successes that we've achieved over the short period of time that I've been with the city in our sustainability efforts. However, having said all that, no stranger to the government sector. Prior to that, I worked for 3 different municipalities in California for 32 years. We did a lot of, obviously, sustainability projects in California. As you would imagine, we'd like to refer to it as the highest regulatory state in the country. And so there's a lot of mandates, right? And so it helps us navigate, obviously, to a you shall rather than mother may I type of approach. So very familiar with electrification, been doing it for the last 20 years. When I retired from the California government sector in 2015, started my own fleet consulting firm called Longabart Ross Consulting, and it was brought on by the City of Raleigh in 2021 to help them advance and modernize their operation and move more towards sustainability projects. So when I did arrive, we looked at a variety of different ways of path moving forward with a lot of different clean energy solutions. And one of the main focuses that we wanted to achieve was transitioning our fleet to electrification in a pretty advanced environment, right? And we wanted to be the leading fleet across the country to show examples of how we were achieving that goal. So we banked on our journey by looking at how we were going to achieve that. And one of the first things that we have recognized is that we needed some type of what we referred to at the time as a plan. But it was a little bit taken on a back seat by using the word plan, because we've done a lot of other plans, such as our climate action plan and our electrification transportation plan. And it was oftentimes noted as another plan of a plan of a plan that we already did a plan for, right? And so we said, well, this is not necessarily going to be a plan more than it is going to be a rollout, right? Rather than recognize some of the benefits that are out there in the sustainability market, we actually wanted to know how we were going to do it, how we were going to pay for it, what we were going to install, which vehicles we were going to transition, and when we were going to do it, and what we needed from a budgetary expense. So therefore, if we had to hand the baton off to the next person carrying the legacy, they would know exactly what to do using step-by-step kind of guidelines. So we refer to it as not a plan, but we refer to it as our EV implementation strategy rollout. Rollout meaning this is exactly how we're going to do it. And we avoided the word plan. We thought that was a bit of a mouthful, so we coined it as using acronyms if we don't already have enough acronyms in our work environment. So we coined it as eVisor. And again, eVisor is just a cute, sexy short term for EV electrification strategy rollout. And so we embarked in that journey in 2022 of June, and we commenced our study in August of 2024. It literally took 2 years to complete. And we were able to fortunately accomplish that through the efforts of a contractual consulting company called ICF. And they drafted our 164 pages of titillating bathroom reading, which to be honest, I don't know that anybody in the city has read every word for all 164 pages. But it is a well orchestrated document, and we refer to as our roadmap or our Bible or our business plan, however you want to refer to it and digest it, right? And so we always reference it whenever we're writing council items or referencing meetings or memorandums. Somehow or some way, eVisor always results into the documentation, as that is our means and kind of foundation of moving forward. When we started this charge, for lack of a better word, and sorry for the pun, we had to identify, obviously, the vehicles that we were going to replace. And we're a very large fleet. We have close to 5,000 vehicles. It's 80 employees strong within fleet management operation. And we needed to look at which vehicles were ideal candidates for electrification. And from the end of that, we determined that of that 5,000 fleet, about 2,000 plus vehicles were eligible for low-hanging fruit for transitioning to electrification. And so we're proud to say today, while we're still a little bit behind the curve for a lot of good reasons for people probably know on this call, we've had quite a milestone. We have well over 100 vehicles that are electrified in the fleet. We have close to 75 chargers citywide, which comprises of about 91 ports, the combination of behind the fence and public fleet and fleet behind the fence charging. So we have a pretty good head start, right? And so we're well on our way into the electrification space. And each year, when we do our supplementals or our equipment replacement, we have what's referred to as another acronym throughout. We call it CREEC. And CREEC stands for Clean Energy Equipment Replacement Committee. And so a group of unbiased individuals look at the vehicles that are due for replacement each year. And then they compile of a methodology to determine which vehicles should be replaced when, and which vehicles are eligible for transition to electrification to help engage the stakeholders. Because even though we've identified those vehicles, that doesn't necessarily mean that there's going to be wide adoption and the end users are going to be wanting to jump into an electric vehicle unless they understand that there is charging and there's supporting infrastructure. And so CREEC looks at those vehicles and then engages into the conversation of the stakeholders, which we refer to as our end users. to make sure they're comfortable in that transition. So there's either behind the wheel training, under hood technician training, or there's chargers nearby. And so it's a good engaging tool to make sure that those stakeholders are kind of jointly moving in the right direction. So everybody knows what we're doing as far as transition to electrification. One of the challenges we had, and the reason I'm here is that through this effort, it was really hard to be clairvoyant and determine where each charger was going to reside. We have well over hundreds of buildings throughout the city, and it was difficult to determine the domicile of each and every vehicle because we're a very fluid fleet. And oftentimes vehicles don't necessarily go back to the same building each time. A large variety of our fleet are take-home vehicles, and they never hit a building, right? So they actually go from home to job site. And so it's really difficult to say, where are we going to put chargers for those vehicles when we don't know where they necessarily domicile for 6 to 8 hours. And so it was a strategic approach to figure out where those vehicles were going to charge. So we looked at a heat map, we determined where the vehicles were at, where the commuting lanes were. And that helped us then kind of understand where chargers needed to be. And what we didn't know was what was the cost of those chargers, and where were we going to charge, where were we going to install those over the course of the next 10 years. And so what we decided to do was, rather than try to guesstimate where infrastructure was going to be, is we decided to take a small bite of the elephant and said, here's where we can put chargers, where there's known places where those vehicles are going to domicile. But what do we do for future sites that we don't know where those chargers are going to be? How do we determine what the costs are going to be? How do we know how many chargers we need to put in? And how do we know what the cost is going to be? So in collaboration with ICF, this is the tool that I'm about to show you. It's embedded into our eVisor, and it's a tool for gathering information. It's not an end all. I'm not suggesting that this is a methodology that you have to use, but it's one option out there for you to get a good head start to know what the cost for infrastructure is going to be and how many chargers you need to put in place. And so the way the tool works is it's nothing more than, truly, to be honest with you, an Excel worksheet on steroids, right? That's beautified. And so what you see is obviously part of our electrification charging infrastructure plan. You can see an image of our fleet and some of the employees recognizing our efforts. And the system simply just walks you through the process. If you look above, you'll notice that there's a little tab called User Input. And really that kind of is a shortcut to get you started. But as you scroll down the page, you start to see narrative information about how the tool works. So there's a general overview guideline of what to expect and how the tool works. And it tells you a little bit about the charging scenarios as to what you're trying to accomplish. In our world, we wanted to look at a 1-to-1 ratio, but then we wanted to look at more of a 4-to-1 ratio to see what the difference in price would be and how that would affect, obviously, utilization and functionality of each and every asset. So there's a couple different options in which a user can choose from. And again, just a visual, obviously a 1-to-1 ratio, plug a port for every vehicle versus obviously what we refer to as a V2P, which means obviously a multitude of vehicles for just a few amount of chargers needed in order to reduce cost and utilization. Detail a little bit about the detail rollout outputs. It talks about the number of chargers, power level, rollout of schedule, and estimated cost. And then you're looking at the dwell time consideration. How long does that vehicle need to be at that location in order to properly charge to get it to a full operating process? And then the vehicle replacement. When is the vehicle going to be replaced? What are the estimated time values that vehicle is going to be replaced so the system could do its own calculation? Same thing with the retirement year. What year is that vehicle going to be replaced? A couple tool limitations to the application, which may affect some of you, maybe not all of you, is that just because of the fact that it is an Excel worksheet, that it is limited to generating information that's reportable. So there's 2,500 lines in which you can put in the Excel worksheet in order to do the calculation. So if you have, excuse me, more than 2,500 vehicles, obviously, in the worksheet, then you'd have to break it up into different worksheets, but the results would mean the same, right? And again, it's something that you could do it in small scales or you could do it in large scales. So I just put in a couple pieces of trivial information that's merely just for the demonstration purposes, but you can put in 5 vehicles, you can put in 500 vehicles or 2,500 vehicles, and then see the output. I just put in 7. And then the user input, which is the same as it is shown on the top, right? You got the little tab at the top. It says user input. And the user input are things that you're going to use for your calculations, such as vehicle ID, daily mileage, if the vehicle is designated as a take-home vehicle, towing capacity, high idle frequency, recommendation for retirement, make and model, charging dwell locations, right, are all important pieces of information, because if a vehicle is towing a vehicle, you're obviously going to get lesser of a range of vehicles versus one that doesn't tow a vehicle. If a vehicle idles a lot, then obviously that's going to have a degradation on the battery as well. And then it wants to look at how many miles does that vehicle traveling in order to make those assumptions to how many chargers you potentially might need. And then the battery capacity, right? It's what kind of battery is it on the vehicle in order to make those determination of charges. And then further down is kind of the complexity of your fleet, right? So over to the right, you can see a couple of different classes of vehicles. And again, we don't get too complicated in the sense of make and models, more than we're just trying to calculate the ratio. So you would pick one of these vehicle types, and obviously you would plug that into the worksheet. And again, this is all information only. This is not necessarily the worksheet. It's more of a tutorial of how to input the information in order to get the results that you're looking for. And then these are just some of the cost anticipations that you would need in order to make that calculations of how much that charging infrastructure is going to cost. All of that said is really in these tabs below. So if you can see the tabs below, this is everything that you're collecting or doing calculations for that you just read above. And so I probably made it more complicated than it needed to be if I just had told you that all you needed to do is go over to the bottom tab where it says user input. I'm on the tab that says readme. And so that's all the fluff and all the great information about what the tool potentially can do. But if a user just comes over to user input, then they simply just start gathering that information. And the way they gather the information is first thing you're going to put in is what is your potential discounted rate as a government entity. We just go at 10% basis versus maybe the private sector. And then what's the baseline of your overall fleet? And then again, this is just a subjective decision. And then further down on the worksheet is where you're going to populate the information. So you're going to put in the unit number. Again, you can put as many or as little as you want. You're going to put in the vehicle replacement type. And that vehicle information type is what was on above. If I go over to the read summary, what is that type of vehicle, right? Is it a sedan? Is it an SUV? And then once you type that information, it automatically then populates the vehicle type 2, which is whether it's light duty, medium duty, or heavy duty. It automatically populates that for you once you put in the replacement type. From there, you're going to ask yourself, does it have a PTO? We need a power takeoff. A power takeoff is what would be used to run auxiliary pieces of equipment on that vehicle. And naturally, as you would imagine, if it's got a PTO, that means it's going to drain more energy out of the battery, and that's going to result in needing more chargers and more charge time. So it's just a simple yes or no question. The next thing you're going to ask, again, PTO, I said, how many hours is that PTO going to run? Again, it's an assumption. So you put in an assumption, if it had the PTO, how many hours that PTO may run. And then the next thing you're going to ask, is it a take-home vehicle? Why do you put in a take-home vehicle? Because you're going to assume that it's going to travel further if it was a take-home vehicle versus not. And then does it tow a vehicle, right? We talked a little bit about this. If the vehicle is being towed, it's going to obviously denigrate the battery a little bit more by towing the vehicle opposed to not. And then is it, again, assumption, is it idling a lot? Is it used for an office? Does it sit in intersections? Does it fix certain things throughout the community that may result in a high idle and battery consumption? And then you're going to put in your recommended replacement retirement date of that asset. Again, these are all fictitious pieces of equipment just for the purpose of demonstration of how the tool works. And then what type of vehicle are you replacing it with, right? We just went with full BEV, but it could be a HEV, it could be a HEV, it could be a variety of different types of electrification to make that assumption. And then you're going to put in the make and model, and then there's a drop down, and the drop down then takes you to what type of vehicle it is. You pick it from the drop down. Just about every electric vehicle is in the inventory. And so you don't have to type anything. You just select the type of vehicle that you're going to be purchasing. And then the dwell location. You put in the dwell location of where that vehicle is going to domicile. And then how many miles does that vehicle travel? Again, some of these may be assumptions, right? But I think we could probably get real close to what those assumptions are. And then the dwell time, meaning that how long is that vehicle going to charge for? Once you know how long that vehicle is going to charge for, and you filled in all the blanks, and the system automatically then starts to make some assumptions for you. So that's when you would go to the next tab. So you simply, you can navigate that through the fleet summary tab. So each one of these tabs takes you to the next tab, or you can just simply go to the next one manually, right? So I went to the user input to the fleet summary. So you'll notice it takes you to fleet summary tab. Fleet summary tab is just simply showing you the number of vehicles that you'd be replacing and where. Then it would ask you, okay, what's the next step? Next step is the executive summary. Executive summary is telling you a little bit more about some of those costs and those assumptions. So here are the 3 dwell locations that I put in per vehicle. The more dwell locations, the more is going to populate the tool. Then it's going to say, what type of ratio are you assuming? You could either say, I'm going to assume a 1-to-1 ratio, or I'm going to assume a multitude of vehicles to one charger. In this case, I didn't really put in enough vehicles as a sample. I only put in 7. But if I put in 1,000 vehicles or thereabouts, I'm going to get a lot more information. So you can see I got limited information, but I got some. In order to make those assumptions on the 7 vehicles and based on the class and make and model of those vehicles, I'm going to need DC fast chargers, not L2s. And so here are the number of DC fast chargers that I'm going to need at each one of those domiciles where I assume those vehicles are going to be. And then it gives me the cost of each site for those vehicles. This, again, these costs are hardware costs. We'll kind of break it down as to total cost and installation as well further on as we move towards the report. Any questions there, or shall I wait till I'm done?
I'm not seeing any in the chat, but another reminder, folks, as Rick goes through this tool, if you do have questions, feel free to throw that in the chat and we can ask as we go, but we'll have time at the end too.
Very good. And if I drag the tool over, I see a little bit more information about those dwelling cycles, about the type of kilowatt chargers that I'm going to need for both of those light and medium duty vehicles. Oops. And then as I go over to the next tab, oh, did I do something wrong? Did I click too many buttons? It appears that I did. Now all I got to do is figure out why I can't move to the next tab. Here we go. Let's see. There we go. So I was here, but I was here, right? And so the next tab obviously is the 1-to-1 ratio. Again, it showed you the number of vehicles in each one of these tabs. And then further down, it shows you that in order to accomplish this task, I need about $340,000. And then it shows you what that cost is associated to. So I am breaking it up, looking at the number of L2s and DC fast chargers that I'm going to need. And in order to accomplish that, I'm going to need about $180,000 in hardware and about $160,000 in installation fee, which is matching my total assumption of cost in order to accomplish that. It's kind of the same thing with the ratio B2P. And then if I go to my final and last schedule tab, I can see what how many vehicles are going to be replaced each year. So it gives me just kind of a pie chart, or excuse me, a graph chart. If I slide it over, I can see a little bit more if I do the 1-to-1 ratio. Again, they're very similar because I don't have a lot of vehicles in my fleet, but I can see when that vehicle reaches this maturity, this is what I'm going to need in order to accomplish it. I'm going to need, obviously, in 2030, when my first vehicle gets replaced, I'm going to need one charger. And that would be at the COF location. In 2030, I'm going to need one charger for my, what I refer to as HES facility. That's our heavy shop. And then our Northeast remote facility, I'm going to need 3 chargers in 2030. So what I'm doing is, in essence, I am predictability, doing an analysis of what vehicles are going to be replaced, when they're going to be replaced, what type of make and model I'm going to need in order to make that assumption, and then when do I need to start to do it. So you really got yourself a schedule and an interpretation of what that cost might be in order to put those chargers in those locations. And that is how the tool works. It's not much more complicated than that. So I am here to answer any questions you might have.
Thanks so much, Rick. Perfect timing. We just got a question from Trey in the chat. He asked, do you anticipate that your take-home EVs will charge at city facilities or at employee residences? And do you have any take-home EVs in your fleet yet?
Yes, great question. So yes, we are anticipating that they'll be charging at home. Some users do charge at home. A lot of our users currently now live in apartment complexes, and so they don't have garages where they can charge. But we are anticipating what will happen when we do have take-home vehicles, and we do this on a regular basis. We just got done with our supplementals, and there are some take-home vehicles in that fleet. Is we are looking at a variety of different technologies. One in particular, it's called Move EV. And so what happens is when that person gets to that destination, all of our vehicles that are take-home vehicles are equipped with telemetry built into the vehicle. And what will happen is that when they plug into that vehicle, because it's connected to telemetry, it will communicate to the software, and we will know exactly how many kilowatt hours are used for those take-home vehicles. It then requests that the employee uploads his or her tariff up into the application, and then it starts doing the calculation based on the load demand of the kilowatt hours used at the time. And then it sends the bill directly to the city. The city then looks at the cost per kilowatt and then puts it directly into their paycheck. So therefore, we're not paying a stipend for a consistent cost in which they may or may not be using. So we are planning on using real-time data to reimburse the employees versus giving them a stipend, because they are paying taxes on that. And so if we overpay them, they potentially could be paying over taxes for something in which they didn't consume. If they do have a charger at home and they have multiple vehicles, one for their personal and one for their city, when they plug in their personal vehicle into the same charger, it will not read that vehicle, and so will not charge the city for the energy consumed. They will pay it out of their own utility bill. But the vehicle that does have telemetry, it will recognize that vehicle, then can figure out the consumption of energy, and then charge the city for that, or have the city reimburse them for their energy costs. I hope that answers the question.
Oh, thanks, Rick. Any other questions for Rick about this tool? Maybe while we're seeing if people have questions to throw in the chat, Rick, I'm curious, just from a user perspective of this tool, as you've been rolling this out within your own fleet department to use as a decision-making tool, have there been any like unexpected benefits of using this tool, or lessons learned of, features that you wish had been in there that you have had to modify the tool to include? Anything like that from a tool usability perspective?
Yeah, hey, great question. And so let's be honest, right? The tool gives you a really good assumption and budgetary head start. But what the tool doesn't do, right, is it talks about the hardware and it talks about the installation. But there's a couple unknowns and things that we've experienced that we didn't expect. And I think everyone will safely say the same on this call, is things that are not associated in this tool are things like engineering drawings. And then maybe transformer upgrades or potentially new services. it's really difficult to know vehicle by vehicle and charger by charger as to what those demands are, because we don't necessarily know what's at that site. So it gives us a really good head start, but it's not the end all of the final decision. It gives us, okay, if we put vehicles at that location, this is what we should anticipate. We have to do a step extra and then actually talk to a contractor, or bring our facility team in to make those additional assumptions. So things we didn't 100% prepare for, that most of our buildings, I can safely say probably all of our buildings, just didn't have the transformer availability in order to go full scale.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for that. Yeah, I think my other question too would be, as you've been rolling this out to staff to utilize, I'm curious how the reception of the tool has been, if people have found it helpful in their own workflows.
Yeah, great question. We don't share it with staff. We keep it internally for our own operation. This is a guideline for us to make those decisions, so that when somebody does come to us and say, hey, we want to put a bank of chargers at this location, can you give us an assumption of what it might cost? It allows us to make those decisions, and then we go through the budgetary process or actually find the funding. If we provided it to everyone, then oftentimes they have this assumption that that's the only cost. And so we like to use it as a guiding tool for us to help the conversations and communications moving forward.
Yeah, that makes sense. Any other questions? We've got some extra time if folks have specific questions about the tool. I'll pause and give it a second.
Yeah, and I think this is one of the things that you need to, and we all know this, right? I'm preaching to the choir, is that, and I'll just see if I can do something as long as we've got some extra time. One of the things that we didn't take in consideration was we can decide what things cost all day long. The bigger challenge was where to find them, where to find the funding. So we kind of had to rethink that process. And so we came up with what we refer to as our capital investment fee. And the capital investment fee is a way of charging back to our stakeholders a cost association to each vehicle. And so therefore, it's more of an organic approach, so that what happens is that each vehicle that costs more than $5,000 is a vehicle that pays into the capital investment fee at 0.75% of the acquisition cost. And so each vehicle that's in the fleet, those departments pay into the capital investment fee, and now there's funding to build out infrastructure, because now it's more of an organic approach where everyone's paying into the fund. Because let's face it, if you're a fleet, or if you're a public works department, or you're any department, no one's prepared to spend $20 million. And so how do you build that mousetrap? And so that's how we came to the assumption of the capital investment fee, so that each vehicle's in the fleet that gets converted to electrification ultimately is going to use those infrastructures to charge their vehicles. And so it needs to be more of a holistic approach, where everybody that owns and operates a vehicle pays into the fee. And each year, as vehicles are brought into the fleet or decommissioned, it's going to be based on the acquisition cost. So there'll be ebbs and flows. So each year, some years will be higher and some years will be lower.
Right.
Hope that helps.
Thanks, Rick. We've got one more question. Your tool has options for a 1-to-1 vehicle to plug ratio, as well as maximizing vehicles per plug. Has Raleigh had any challenges with sharing of plugs?
We have not. And one thing that we're proud that we're capable of doing is all of our chargers are smart chargers. So while we haven't completed them all, we have them all networked. So, or at least we will have them networked. This we will know which vehicles are plugged into which chargers. We'll know the utilization. We'll know the kilowatt hours that are being used. We'll know which vehicles are being charged. We'll know how much it costs them to charge. And so we treat electrification like a commodity, or at least that's our vision. Is that each time a vehicle is plugged in, and the time that they spent there will be much like a nozzle going into the filler neck of your vehicle. is that we'll know exactly how much energy they've used and then charge it back to those departments. And if we see some chargers that are of higher demands than others, it may be an indicator that we need to put in more chargers, or we may need to encourage others to move to different locations. So far, we haven't had an overwhelming demand.
Great. Well, one last call for any additional questions. Otherwise, I will wrap us up. Rick, thanks so much for sharing this tool. This is extremely helpful, and I think hopefully folks on the call found it useful. But with that, maybe Dory, I'll pass it back to you.
Sounds good. Thank you so much, Rick, for sharing your expertise and the tool with us. Really interesting information. Appreciate that. On the next slide, I just want to provide some updates and kind of round us up before we head out. We wanted to make you aware that the Electrify the South, in coordination with Atlas Public Policy, Transportation Electrification in the Southeast report has been updated to include Q3 and Q4 data for the end of the year. So we don't update the report itself, but we do update the data points that are on the state pages. So the QR code there will take you to the updated state pages and the updated article that Stan has kind of summarized what some of the key points are. Those indicators that we captured in the report and on the state pages are the manufacturing jobs and manufacturing investment dollars flowing to the Southeast. We also look at the number of EVs sold and the charging infrastructure that's been installed, as well as utility investments and public funding. So I know that sometimes folks are looking for current EV numbers in their state, and that's a great resource to be able to find that. Stan, is there anything else that you wanted to highlight about the update to the report with the state pages?
Just to say that I think that there's a lot of good information, obviously, in the data, but what I think is most compelling is recognizing that though the headlines are highlighting the flattening or decreasing in new EV sales, that there are market forces behind that. A lot of sales were pulled forward into the Q3 of last year when the tax credits ended. And so we're seeing the effects of that pull forward, those pull forward sales. And there's a lot of in the data reason to believe that we're going to see a pretty quick recovery in terms of those new car sales. There's still a ton of consumer interest that's holding steady. And we're also seeing a really robust used car market kick in, which is resulting in more EVs and more EV drivers hitting the road, even as new car sales flatten. And so in that nuance, I think there's a lot that you can use to maybe quell some of the beliefs that EVs are not going to work anymore, right? So hopefully that data can help you in that argument. My dog thinks it makes a great case.
Thank you, Stan, and thank you, Mitter, for your inputs. All right, so if you have any questions or want to reach out, then and thank you, Amy. I noticed you're putting the link right in the chat. So if you guys want to check out the state pages and the regional pages, they're in the summary. It's right there in the chat. So next slide. We are wanting your feedback. So thank you. I put the call out yesterday, the day before. We've already received over 40 responses to the questionnaire, but we are looking for what you value most and what you have been seeing as a benefit from the collaborative, so that we can try to align those needs with an upcoming proposal to potential funders. So if you have not already taken the time, it's really short. It's under 2 minutes. It's like 3 questions. And a lot of people I noticed are adding other and adding multiple choices. So it allows you to select one. But if you'd like to include more than one priority, then please just click other and let us know what your top choices are. And then also if the format, we're asking if, which is most valuable, in person or virtual or a combination of both. So if you haven't filled that out, please take the time to make that happen. Really appreciate it. And give it just a second. So I'm going to put the link to the form in the chat as well, so that everybody has that, in addition to the QR if you don't have your phone on you, to be able to check that out real quick. Give me just a second. There we go. So you can just click on that and take the question, take the questionnaire. And then the last thing on the next slide is just a reminder: if you're in Tennessee or in North Carolina and have not yet registered for the in-person event on the 24th, we would love to have you, but we do need to get a head count going pretty quick. So by end of day tomorrow, if you're planning on joining, please make sure that you have registered. And I will again put the registration link into the chat for that, so that you have it if you want to just click right on it. And there we go. And with that, I think we are wrapped up for what we had planned on covering today. So if you would like to stay on and have questions for the speakers that we're on, or just want to stay on and ask questions amongst your peers, we'll let the clock keep going. But other than that, if you're ready to sign off, then thank you so much for joining us. Really have valued our time together, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.